The first red flag wasn't lipstick. It wasn't perfume. It wasn't a suspicious text or a late-night call. It was a pair of stupid, oversized, neon orange socks jammed between my power drill and the wrench set I hadn't touched in 6 months. I stood in the garage, holding them like they were radioactive. Bright orange, with little rubber ducks all over them. Definitely not mine. I wore plain black. Always have. Always will. I stared at them, waiting for my brain to come up with some logical explanation. Halloween decoration? Laundry mix-up? Neighbor kid's prank? But I live in a cul-de-sac. We don't have neighbors. Not ones who break into garages to stash novelty socks next to your drill bits. And then I saw the receipt. It fluttered out when I lifted the toolbox lid, a folded strip from a diner across town. 2 burgers. Extra pickles. Oreo milkshake. And written at the top in blue ink. Missed you. Same time next week. No name. Just that. But the handwriting? It was hers. My wife's. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there for way too long in the cold garage, holding a pair of socks that didn't belong to me and realizing, in absolute silence, that my marriage was already over. The next few days? Hell, she still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Still sent heart emojis. Still asked if I could pick up oat milk on the way home. But the second she left the house, I felt the air go stale. Like the walls knew. Like the floorboards didn't want to creak for me anymore. I started noticing the tiny things. She'd shower the second she got home, even if she wasn't sweaty. She'd sleep with her phone under the pillow. She changed the password on our shared Netflix account. Netflix, for God's sake. Who hides Netflix? The thing is, I'm not a confrontational guy. I wish I was. I wish I'd flipped the table, stormed into the garage holding the socks like a weapon, and shouted, "Who is he?" But I didn't. I sat with it. I swallowed it. I lived every day pretending I was okay, pretending I still had a marriage, while that man, whoever he was, wore rubber duck socks in my house and drank Oreo milkshakes with my wife across town like it was some rom-com montage. I tried one last thing. I planned a weekend getaway. Booked a cabin. Quiet lake, no cell service, just us. I thought if I could just get her alone, away from everything, we could fix it. Start over. She said she had work. Too much going on at the clinic, she said. Next month, maybe. That night, I checked her location. She was nowhere near the clinic. She was downtown, at a karaoke bar, singing, laughing, arms wrapped around someone with a man bun and cargo pants, according to the tagged photos I found later. That was it. That's the night I wrote it. My resignation letter. Not to my job. Not even to her. To everything. To the quiet dignity I thought would protect me. To the version of me that begged for crumbs of attention. To the guy who kept fixing things while someone else lived in the house he built. She didn't see it coming. But when she did, when she finally opened that envelope, she tried to claw it all back. Too late. I didn't say anything right away. I still kissed her goodnight. Still made her coffee. Still listened to her complain about her boss while I sat across the table, wondering if she had any idea that I knew. She didn't. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. I don't know which one is worse. For 3 nights straight, I stared at the resignation letter I drafted. Not from work, no. That would have been easier. This was my resignation from her. From being the patient, predictable husband. The one who paid for her yoga classes and let her vent about how men don't listen, while I stood there, listening. I had built a life that she'd casually invited another man into, and I was supposed to keep smiling like some kind of understudy in my own marriage. So I played along. That weekend, I told her I'd be out of town for a work retreat. Packed a bag. Left early. But I didn't go far. I parked 3 blocks away and waited. It didn't take long. An hour after I left, her car pulled out of the driveway. I followed her from a distance. Not like in the movies with the black SUV and sunglasses. No, just me and my old Civic, heart pounding, hands clammy on the wheel. She drove straight to the same diner from the receipt I found. She didn't even try to hide it. She walked in and sat across from a man who looked like he'd just rolled out of bed and decided that pants were optional. Ripped joggers, a hoodie 2 sizes too big, and a beanie in 70-degree weather. Felix, I finally saw his face. He leaned across the table and kissed her like he'd earned it. Like I didn't exist. Like this wasn't my wife. He was making moony eyes at over fries and a shake. I didn't go in. I couldn't. I sat there in the parking lot, staring through the windshield as my marriage played out like a bad soap opera in real time. And still, I didn't scream. Still, I didn't confront her. I just left. When I came back home Sunday night, she was already there. She was in bed, pretending to be half asleep, scrolling on her phone. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her. I think part of me hoped she'd feel it, the weight of my eyes, the quiet before the storm. But she never looked up. The next morning, I left the envelope on the kitchen table. Plain white. Her name in blue ink. I went to work like usual. She texted me around 9 a.m., 3 words. What is this? I didn't answer. By noon, the calls started. At first, they were spaced out, like she was pretending not to panic. But by 3 p.m., she was calling every 5 minutes. Then she left a voicemail. Just one sentence. Just 5 words. Please tell me you're joking. I wasn't. And she knew it. Because that letter didn't just say I was done with her. It didn't just say I wanted a divorce. It detailed every moment I knew. The socks. The receipts. The lies. The location pings. The tagged photos. The missed calls. The nights she said she was at the clinic. I wrote it all down. Every betrayal. Every red flag. Every moment she thought I was too blind or too soft to notice. She tried calling again. I watched the screen light up. Nora, calling. I let it ring. Later that night, I came home to find her sitting on the kitchen floor, mascara streaked, eyes puffy, holding the letter like it was burning her hands. She didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Then she whispered, "You didn't even give me a chance to explain." And I laughed. Out loud. Because what could she possibly explain? The socks belonged to her friend's cousin. The kiss at the diner was a dare. The reason she locked her phone at night was because she was planning me a surprise party. She reached for me. I stepped back. She cried. I didn't. Not anymore. The thing about people like Nora is they believe the spotlight will always swing back to them. That the man they keep on emotional standby, the quiet husband with the tucked-in shirt and the dependable routine, will wait forever. But I was done waiting. And the moment I saw her crying on the kitchen floor, I knew something had shifted. Not in her, in me. I didn't comfort her. I didn't kneel down and tell her we could fix this. I didn't ask her why. I didn't need to anymore. I think part of her expected that. Like she was waiting for my hands to tremble, for my voice to crack, for me to break down and say, "Please, just tell me it didn't mean anything." But I didn't give her that satisfaction. I just walked past her, stepped over her purse like it was debris, and went to the bedroom. She followed me. Of course she did. She started talking. Fast, panicked, stumbling over herself. She said it was just flirting at first, that Felix was a mistake, that she was emotionally vulnerable, and didn't know why she kept letting it happen. She said I'd been distant and overworked and unavailable. Funny how I was never unavailable when she needed rent paid or tires changed or a ride to the airport at 5 a.m. I sat on the edge of the bed while she threw words at me like darts, hoping one would stick, hoping one would trigger the old me, the version that forgave too easily, that begged for scraps of affection just to keep the peace. But I stayed silent. That silence scared her more than anything I could have said. She started crying harder, pacing, pulling at her sleeves like she didn't know where to put her hands. She said, "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. Just please don't leave." And then she said the line that made my blood turn to ice. "If you leave now, you'll regret it later." That wasn't desperation. That was a threat. She realized it the second it came out. Her face changed. She tried to walk it back, said she didn't mean it, that she was scared and saying anything to make me stay. But the damage was done. I stood up, grabbed my overnight bag from the closet, the one she didn't even notice I'd packed 2 days earlier, and I told her flatly, "You already made your choice. Now I'm making mine." I left. Not just the house. I left everything. I didn't go to a friend's place. I didn't check into a hotel. I drove for hours. Past state lines. Past the places that reminded me of us. Past the town where we got engaged, where we used to eat Sunday pancakes, where she used to say I made her feel safe. I drove until the sun came up and my phone battery died with 22 missed calls and a long, desperate text that said, "Please come back. Please. I'll do anything." But the words were too late. And the apology came from the same number that used to send, "Working late tonight," while she was lying half naked in someone else's apartment. I found a small cabin rental by a lake. Nothing fancy, just a bed, a window, a silence I didn't have to explain. I turned off my phone, sat by the water. Let the wind slap my face and remind me what it felt like to be alive without someone else controlling the thermostat on my emotions. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. And when I woke up, I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. The person I thought I married. But that woman didn't exist anymore. It was 2 weeks before I turned my phone back on. 2 weeks of silence. 2 weeks without her voice, without her sighs, without her walking past me like I was invisible. And when I finally powered it back on, I watched as the notifications flooded in like a tidal wave. 47 missed calls. Dozens of texts. Some long, some short. Some begging, some angry. One said, "You're acting like a child." And another said, "I'll wait forever if I have to." I didn't respond to a single one. I just deleted everything and set the phone down like it was contaminated. I didn't expect her to come find me. I really didn't. I thought the silence would scare her off, maybe even give her time to move on with her backup plan, Mr. Beanie Socks and diner kisses. But Nora never could sit with consequences. She had to control the ending. She had to twist the story so that even if she lost, she got to narrate it. So when she showed up at my office, wearing the same blouse she used to wear on our good date nights, I wasn't surprised. But the people around me were. My coworkers didn't even know I was married. That's how private I'd become over the years. I never brought her to company events. Never posted her on social media. People assumed I was just one of those quiet, career-focused guys who spent his weekends alphabetizing his spice rack. So when a woman marched in during my lunch hour, tears in her eyes, and asked the front desk to see my husband, half the floor stood up like it was a reality show playing out live. I was in the break room, heating up leftover pasta when I heard her voice say my name. Not loud, not angry, just hollow. I turned and saw her standing there like a ghost. Pale, hair tied up, no makeup, eyes swollen. She looked like she hadn't slept since I walked out. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask why she was there. I just watched her, waiting for the performance. It came quickly. She started talking fast, just like before. Said she missed me. Said she couldn't sleep. Said she hadn't seen Felix in weeks. That he wasn't who she thought he was. Said I was the only one who ever truly cared. And then she said, "I read the resignation letter again. I get it now. I really do. And I'm ready to change." I swear to you, I almost laughed. Right there, in front of the vending machines and the stale coffee machine. Not because it was funny, but because she thought it was that simple. That all it took was regret and timing and a sad little monologue to undo a year of betrayal. I stepped past her, reached into the fridge, grabbed my soda, and said, "You changed already. I'm just finally reacting." She followed me back to my desk, ignoring the eyes on us, ignoring the tension in the air. I could hear people pretending not to listen. She stood behind me and whispered, "Don't do this. Don't end it like this. We're not done." I turned slowly and said the one thing she couldn't argue with. "You ended it when you chose him. This is just the paperwork." She broke right there. Tears streamed down her face. She tried to pull me into a hug, and I stepped back, keeping my arms at my sides while everyone pretended not to stare. It was humiliating, not because I was being begged in public, but because I had to explain to a room full of strangers why I ever let it get this far. She left a few minutes later. I watched her walk out without saying goodbye, without slamming the door. Just gone, like a ghost retreating into daylight. But the worst part? I didn't feel victorious. I just felt empty, like something had finally been removed from me, but it left a mark. I thought seeing her at my job would be the lowest point, the final desperate attempt to pull me back into her version of reality. But Nora wasn't done. Not even close. A few days later, I got a call from my sister, Lindsay. I hadn't told her everything, just that Nora and I were separating. I didn't have the strength to explain all the humiliating details, especially not to family. But Lindsay wasn't calling to ask about me. She sounded confused. "Why is Nora coming to Dad's memorial?" I nearly dropped the phone. My father passed away 6 months earlier, and we'd planned a small gathering at his favorite park to scatter some of his ashes. Just family. Just the people who actually knew him. Nora had never even met him. He was already gone when she and I got serious. And yet, somehow, she'd found out about the event. And she was planning to show up. I called her immediately, furious. I hadn't spoken to her since the work incident. She answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting. "Don't come," I said. "You have no right." "I loved hearing you talk about him," she said quietly. "It always made me feel close to your family. I just want to pay my respects." You used my grief as decoration at dinner parties, I snapped. Don't pretend you mourn him now. She went quiet for a second, then said the single most manipulative sentence I'd ever heard from her. And trust me, the competition was steep. If you really want me to stay away, then say it to my face. But if you still love me, even a little, let me come. I hung up. I didn't block her. I didn't scream. I just sat on my floor, shaking, because she knew exactly what she was doing. My dad's death had been the one moment she ever truly held me while I cried. Back when we were still good, back when I still thought love meant safety. And now she was using it like it was hers. The next day, I arrived at the park early. It was cloudy, just how my dad would have liked it. My family started trickling in. Hugs, tears, silence. I kept scanning the edge of the parking lot, praying she wouldn't show. She did. Late like always. Wearing the same coat she used to wear when we took walks in the winter. I saw her before anyone else did, and I swear, my heart stopped. I wanted to scream, to drag her away. But I just stood there, frozen, as she walked toward me like she belonged. My sister stepped in. God bless her. She didn't yell, didn't make a scene. She just walked up to Nora and said, "This isn't your place," and turned her right back around. Nora tried to protest, voice shaking, hands fluttering. But Lindsay didn't budge. "You don't get to cry here," she told her. "You already took enough." I didn't say a word. Not one. Nora left, humiliated, and I watched her car disappear down the road with my father's name still on my lips. I felt sick, violated, angry, but more than anything, I felt numb, like she had taken something sacred and dragged it into the mess she made. There are lines you don't cross, no matter how desperate you are. And Nora? She erased the line entirely. That night, she sent me one final text. "You're choosing silence over everything we built." And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for not answering. Because silence wasn't avoidance anymore. It was survival. I should have expected she wouldn't go quietly. Nora never accepted losing control. Not when we were together, and certainly not after I left. But still, nothing prepared me for what came next. It started with a few weird messages from mutual friends, short, polite, but laced with awkward concern. One said, "Hey man, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here." Another said, "I heard about what you're going through, stay strong." At first, I thought maybe they found out the truth. Maybe someone finally saw her with Felix. Maybe the silence was over and everything was coming out. But no, it was much worse than that. One of Nora's friends, someone I'd once driven to the airport at 5 in the morning, someone who toasted us at our wedding, finally cracked and sent me a screenshot. It was a group chat, dozens of people, and there, in black and white, was Nora's carefully crafted story. She said I'd snapped, that I had walked away from reality after my father's death, that I'd become cold and paranoid, that I had abandoned her out of nowhere and was now possibly unstable. She claimed I was having a breakdown and warned people not to push me too hard if I reached out. It was brilliant, honestly, the way she turned her own betrayal into a tragic sob story. She made herself look like the grieving, blindsided wife left picking up the pieces of a man who couldn't handle life. She weaponized my silence. She filled in the blanks with poison and let people believe she was the victim. But what she didn't count on was that I kept everything. Every receipt, every message, every blurry photo, every time-stamped notification that proved she was lying through her teeth. I had a digital trail longer than most people's resumes. I didn't plan to use it. I never wanted to be that guy airing dirty laundry in public. But when someone paints you as dangerous, when they start rewriting your sanity to protect their own ego, you don't stay quiet. So I sent one message, just one, to the same group chat she poisoned. No commentary, no insults, no rage, just a Dropbox link. Inside were neatly organized folders, screenshots, voice memos, her text admitting the affair, the diner receipts, the social media tags, a screen recording of her own "I'll do anything" messages, even the karaoke video where she's clearly sitting on Felix's lap while claiming she was working overtime at the clinic. I didn't wait for the fallout. I turned my phone off and went to the lake again. I sat on the same bench where I first started to feel like myself again. I stared at the water, not expecting peace, but finally feeling something close to justice. When I turned my phone back on the next day, my inbox was on fire. Dozens of apologies. Friends I hadn't heard from in years reaching out to say they were sorry for believing her. One message stood out, from her cousin. She said, "She's losing it. She didn't think you'd actually expose her." Good, because I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth. But what I didn't realize was that Nora still had one more thing up her sleeve, something darker, something messier, something that wouldn't just damage reputations, but threaten what was left of my peace. And she was already setting it in motion. I thought I was finally ahead of it. After I dropped the truth in that group chat, the silence around me felt cleaner. Not empty, just clear. No more explaining. No more doubting myself. People who mattered knew the truth. I could finally breathe again without wondering what version of me she'd rewritten in someone else's inbox. But Nora didn't want peace. She wanted control. And when she couldn't own the narrative anymore, she did what terrified men do when they're cornered. Except she wasn't a man. She was my ex-wife. And she was smarter than I ever gave her credit for. I found out the same way most people do. A knock at the door, too early in the morning, with a folded piece of paper and a uniformed officer avoiding eye contact. I opened it. Temporary restraining order. My name. Her signature. A claim that I had become unstable, harassing, and emotionally threatening. That I was showing up at her work. That I was stalking her social media. That I'd been tracking her phone without permission. None of it was true. Not one line. But in that moment, reading those lies stacked like bricks on a courthouse form, I realized exactly what she was trying to do. She was setting the stage. She knew she couldn't win with the truth. So she was trying to rig the system with fear. She wanted to turn me into the villain so she could walk away clean, not just in front of her friends, but in the eyes of the law. And if that meant painting me as dangerous, obsessive, or even violent, she'd do it. Without blinking. But the part that truly gutted me wasn't the accusation. It was the fact that she filed it the same week she tried to get me back. After the office visit. After the crying at the memorial. After the "I'll change" messages. She had one foot in the doorway, whispering apologies, while the other was already pressing charges. I called my lawyer, panicked. I sent him everything. The texts, the emails, the timelines. I remember pacing in my living room like a prisoner, heart racing, palms sweating, wondering if I was about to be arrested for being cheated on. My lawyer was calm, methodical. He said, "She's not trying to win a case. She's trying to make you flinch." And she nearly did. Because for the first time since this entire thing started, I genuinely felt afraid. Not for my safety, for my future, for my name, for the version of me that still had dignity and a clean record and a job where people respected me. What if her lies stuck? What if this was just the beginning of a legal nightmare designed to drain me until I gave up? I didn't eat for 3 days. Didn't sleep more than a few hours. I went to court to respond to the temporary order. I sat there alone in a suit that didn't fit me anymore. I'd lost weight, and everything I wore hung off me like I'd shrunk overnight. Nora didn't show up in person. She appeared on video, looking soft-spoken, fragile, like the kind of person you instinctively protect. The judge read both sides, and then asked a single question that cracked everything wide open. "Ma'am, you say you feared for your safety. Why did you message the respondent 22 times in one night asking to reconcile?" Silence. Long, heavy. Awkward. Nora blinked, stammered, tried to pivot. But the damage was done. The judge dismissed the order. Just like that. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted. Like I'd just dodged a bullet, but the sniper was still out there, adjusting her scope. Because Nora had lost control again. And people like her? They don't stop. They escalate. It didn't all click at once. Healing isn't a lightning bolt. It's more like 1,000 small choices you make when no one's watching. Like deciding not to open her message at 2 a.m. Like walking past a memory without letting it pull you under. Like breathing, deep, steady, full, after months of holding your chest tight like your own lungs didn't belong to you anymore. After the restraining order hearing, I cut the last threads. I changed my number. Blocked every mutual friend who played both sides. Moved out of that apartment with the creaky floors and the fridge magnet she left behind that said, "Love is loud." I started fresh. Somewhere small. Quiet. A town no one would brag about on Instagram. And that's exactly why I picked it. I found work at a local design firm. Nothing flashy. Just honest, stable work. The kind where people know your name by the second week and ask how your weekend was without needing a backstory. I stopped apologizing for my peace. Stopped shrinking to make space for someone who never once did the same for me. And then, something strange happened. I started laughing again. Not the tight, polite chuckle I'd perfected during the worst of it. Real laughter. That deep kind that surprises you. I met people who didn't know anything about Nora or Felix or the box of socks that shattered my reality. People who liked me without needing to fix me. And one of them, her name was Erin. We met at a bookstore. She asked if the novel in my hand was worth the emotional damage, and I said, nothing I read will ever wreck me as much as my ex-wife's group texts. She laughed. I laughed. And something opened in me I didn't think I had access to anymore. We took it slow. I told her the truth, not all at once, but piece by piece, like unwrapping something fragile. She didn't flinch. She didn't try to save me or pity me. She just listened, held space, gave me silence when I needed it, and warmth when I didn't know I needed anything at all. Months passed, then a year. I grew into someone I hadn't met before. Not the man I was before Nora, better, wiser, not colder, just clearer. And then one day, while walking with Erin through a farmer's market, it happened. I saw her, Nora, alone. No Felix, no groupies, no designer coat. She looked older, not in years, in energy, like life had been clawing at her for a while, and she finally stopped pretending it wasn't. Our eyes met for half a second. She froze. I didn't. I smiled. Not a cruel smile. Not a smug one. Just calm, quiet, free. She opened her mouth like she might say something, but I turned away before she could. I didn't need closure anymore. She already gave it to me, the day she underestimated what silence can do. And as Erin slipped her hand into mine, I knew I wasn't the one who lost something. She was.